Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker. Here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome, family, to this episode of the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm Gwen Mitchell, your host, and today I'm delighted to have with me Shereel Washington. Shereel is an accomplished herbalist and serves as the principal of Ixalted Natural Body Care and Botanicals, a great name, by the way. It's a health and body restorative herbal business that specializes in creating customized herbal formulations to support and restore overall health and wellness. As a certified clinical herbalist, Shereel holds a certification from the California School of Herbal Studies in the areas of body systems, herbal crafting, and community clinical herbalism. She's completed over 1,200 hours of extensive herbal medicine making and production. That's really impressive, Shereel. Shereel also works as an instructor at various institutions and annual events, including Land of Verse, Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium, Berkeley Herbal Center, Buckeye Gathering, and online courses featured on learning herbs. As a wellness practitioner and herbal health, healing, and nutrition consultant, Shereel serves diverse ethnic communities, promoting natural health care and wellness through plant medicine. And she's passionate about global cultural herbal traditions and is dedicated to preserving the history and knowledge of Black North American herbalism. I didn't even know that was a thing, so I really want to get into that as we move into our discussion.
Absolutely.
Recognized for her community efforts, Shereel has been named a community leader by People Science and a cultivator of celebration by Cornell University Botanical Gardens Seed of Survival and Celebration exhibit. Her commitment to research and collaboration is highlighted in her work with traditional medicinals and people science, where she shared valuable insights into the history of Black North American herbalists. In addition to her expertise in herbalism, Shereel is an accomplished martial artist and has been a longtime dancer, teacher, and performer. Welcome, Shereel. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come on such an amazing show. And I am too, when I went to your website and saw all the things that you were speaking on, it's like, wow, this is impressive. And so it's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're all out here doing the work in one form or another.
Yes.
And it's so wonderful to meet kindred spirits who are connected to serving the community and serving humanity in various ways. So I really feel honored to have you as a guest.
Oh, thank you so much, my dear. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to us sharing and talking together. So thank you again.
Beautiful. So let me start by asking you about the name Ixalted. It's Ixalted. And when I saw that name, I just felt like a very uplifting energy. So how did you come up with that name for your company?
Well, actually, that name stems from the performing arts organization my husband and I founded back in 2003, Exalt, IXALT, because we're both artists. And so it was a performing arts organization that was dedicated to sharing the love of God through dance, music, song, and spoken word. And so we had that organization, that event for about almost 6 years. And then, during the economic downturn, things that kind of went financially bust, if you will. But during that time, the goal was to exalt the Lord, exalt God, exalt the love of God, and through the arts and exalt that. And so to also provide a platform for people to share their love of God through the arts as well. But when Exalted Natural Body, we just felt that was such a wonderful way to continue that exaltation of God through creation, through plant medicine, through health, through wellness, because God's concerned about our health. So we just wanted to speak to that. And then plus, it's a play on word because, exalt is spelled with an E, but we wanted to also bring it to personal, make a personal claim and declaration of that as well. And so that's how we came up with the name Exalted Natural Body, because we know that God cares about our body. He cares about our mind, cares about our spirit, our physical well-being, and then also plants, also the natural thing, the natural health that God created for us to utilize for that. And so we place great emphasis on that as well. So that's how we came up with the name Exalted Natural Body Care and Botanicals.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I see you're a martial artist. What martial arts do you practice?
Well, I've been practicing Shaolin Kung Fu and Qigong now for almost 10 years. But my journey began with judo. And then I studied White Crane Silat Kung Fu, which is Indonesian style Kung Fu, particularly White Crane. This is more, not so much more combative, but it's just more kind of spiritual, more personal. So I did that for several years. And then I decided that I wanted to go and understand the ancestry of White Crane Silat, which is Shaolin Kung Fu. And so it
Wow.
was my teacher, Master Sheldon Callahan. He has a school deep rooted in for spiritual studies in Oakland. And so I've been with him, like I said, since 2018. And he has just, it's just been a enriching experience, not just combatively, but then also what really is Kung Fu? What really is it to self-protect, not just so much of getting into a physical altercation, but your own daily battles that we fight within ourselves. We fight,
Mhm.
we have our dynamic of relationships with people, and how do we use that to maintain? And so it's just been a
Mhm.
beautiful journey of that as well. Yeah,
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful. I'll just mention that in July, on the 17th actually of July, we're going to be hosting a Love Letters to Our Bodies Day of Renewal
Ooh.
for women who are navigating cancer and their caregivers. And
Mm.
as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be in touch with you after this about
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
You know?
please do. Yeah. I do teach Qigong. It's funny. I'm kind of not trying to go too far off in what we're talking about, but I really enjoy teaching Qigong. I really do in teaching this work because I've seen the how impactful it is, especially for
Yes.
women,
Mhm.
and so I also volunteer at the Charlotte Maxwell Cancer Integrative Cancer Center here in Oakland. And so I led a whole class in Qigong and lymphatic work. And it was really nice to be able to connect with women and have them connect to their bodies and to also know what are some of the simple things that can be done to help shift our nervous system and to help really change patterns just with breath work. Things that
Mhm.
are available to us that are free. You know what I mean? And so
Exactly.
I love doing this work, especially when it relates to cancer. There's so much to unpack there. There's a lot of emotions and feelings and thoughts, and just being able to have a space where women can just feel rest and to just
Mhm.
kind of not be so heavily focused on the condition itself, because that's a stressor.
Yes,
And
yes,
so
yes,
just being
yes.
able to help shift it anyway, it's just been a real privilege to do that.
Mhm. Charlotte Maxwell is our partner, and we work with them with women navigating cancer. And Love Notes to Self is a a small sort of mini version of our Love Letters to Our Bodies
Mm,
workshop, but
mm,
it'll really focus on how the unprocessed emotions
mm,
actually create a burden in the body that
mm.
hinders healing. So
Yes.
it's a very wonderful opportunity as well. So let's get
Yes.
back to you now. I want
Yes.
to talk about your story. Take us to the beginning. What first drew you to the world of plants and herbal medicine? And was there a moment or a person or a healing experience that called you in?
Well, that would be my grandmother. She was my first herbal teacher. And just a little bit about her, she was born in 1922. She was born in a little town in Louisiana, Wharton, Louisiana. And so she comes from a legacy of land stewards. And so she has, I think she told me she had like 14 siblings. And so her father raised them on a ranch. And so being with the land, knowing the land, that was just something that was around her a lot. And so, of course, forward to my arrival, my coming, she was a strong gardener. And so she was the one who had a garden not only in her backyard, but also in her front yard. And so she grew all of her greens, apples, onions. She even tried to grow a few potatoes. She grew whatever she could grow. And then in the front, she had her collards in the front, and her philosophy was the thing she had at front was for the birds to helpfully deter them from wanting to go to her garden in the back, which was her main garden. And so I thought that was very wise because I would see the birds and other animals be out in the front. And I thought again, you were talking about farming approaches. We're concerned about the other animals and making sure they get their share. And she was that person. So I just grew up watching her land tend. And so when I would come over, when she was out in the garden, she would always tell me, okay, go out and get this or go out and get that. And of course, being little, I didn't want no bugs getting on me and stuff. But,
Yes.
but she would tell me, girl, stop worrying about that. Because as a kid, some of those bugs were big. At least they seemed big to us. But, that was her way of introducing me to plants, was just having me go out and do and get. And so, whenever she would be at the kitchen, either cooking something or soup, or she would be making greens, because she would love to put different vegetables and herbs in her greens, right?
Hmm.
'Cause my grandmother was a naturalist. She was like, before there was, I'm organic and I'm this, she was all that when it wasn't even popular. Like we would come to her house, we never had the latest designer cereals. It was like flaxseed, it was some type of wheat. She wanted us
Hmm.
to be
Hmm.
healthy and regular.
Hmm. Yep, 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 yep.
So he was really concerned about health, and she knew how to procure fresh food. She hardly went to the grocery store for anything. She would drive sometimes out hours to really rural places to get fresh meat, to get like grown beans, everything except dairy, which I
Hmm.
think she even knew how
Hmm.
to do that. But she just knew where to do that. And so she was just a living doctor for us at home. Like, and she never went to the doctor, hardly ever until later when she got into a car accident and injured her back.
Hmm.
And so she introduced not just the plants, but just how to eat well and healthy. So that was around me growing up as a teenager. Like whenever we would have health problems, we would go to her and she would make recommendations as to what to do. My grandmother was also a minister. And so people would also from the church, they would come to her for spiritual healing and they would come to her for actual recommendations. And so I
Hmm.
grew up watching her. Like she would lay hands on people and she would pray for people. Then sometimes she would say, okay, you need to take this aspirin or you need to do this or you need to eat this food. Or like when my younger brother, when he was ill, he got really, really sick. He had a series of whooping coughs. And so my
Hmm.
mother would take him to her and he would stay with her and she would bathe him in like vinegar or she would put mustard at the bottom of his feet. She just knew those remedies and they worked. Everything she
Hmm.
did for us worked. We always went out of her home not sick. And so that was my example and that was my teacher was her.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
So when you decided to actually take up the craft of herbal medicine.
Mhm.
Now, when did that happen and how did that happen?
Yes, that happened in exactly 2016. I was sitting at the computer just like this, and I heard a voice from the Lord saying, "You need to study this." Because I was also dealing with like menstrual issues. Sometimes I would have prolonged bleeding, or I would have an absence of a menstrual cycle. And I was just looking and researching, like, what can I do on my own? Because I was going to the doctor and they just had me inundated with different, medicines that weren't really doing anything. Like they had me try guaifenesin, a cough syrup. They had me try metformin because there was some research saying that metformin could also help benefit reproduction in women and stuff like that. So none of that worked. And so finally it's like, okay, I need to see what else is available for me. So I just heard a voice saying, you need to go to school. You need to learn this. But I didn't want to go because I'm like, look, I went to college already. I got my undergraduate degree. I'm not trying to pay more money. My younger sister was like, girl, go to school. Now, this is a woman who's a PhD. She teaches linguistics. She's like really smart, but she said, girl, go to school. So I went to school and I looked at various schools here in the Bay, and I looked at the school where I teach, Berkeley Herbal. I wasn't too moved enough to go until I found out about the California School of Herbal Studies. Now, that's about a 2.5 hour drive, but I tell you, it was worth it because when I arrived on the grounds and saw how beautiful the space was outside in that garden, that was a
Hmm.
wrap. I said, this is a
Hmm.
wrap. I need to be near the plants. I need to be outside. I need to be here. So I got in their long-term program where it was just 1 weekend a month for 9 months. So I did two of those terms. And then I came back in 2022 to just complete my clinical credentials, which was, between that time I was already, teaching. I was already practicing, seeing clients, my practice began to really move. But after I got my clinical credential,
Hmm.
things really became more refined. And so that's
Beautiful.
how I got that.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
On your website, you've described Ixalted as bespoke, a healing
Hmm.
that's crafted specifically for each person. What does that mean to you, and how is it different from what most people think of when they hear herbal remedies?
Yeah. So for customizing means that you're creating a formula or a remedy specific to the person's symptoms, their constitution, and their needs. There are lots of different, already formulas that people create. And I've seen this even as students are coming out of like herbal programs, they'll go and build their apothecaries and create all the things that they like. And then they'll recommend them to their clients, but then it's like it may not be for the client because you liked it and you made it doesn't mean that it's going to be the best for the client. And so that's that. And the other piece is that I'm making something, each remedy is going to be different. It's not going to be the same. It's not a copycat. And so it
Mhm.
also, for me, I like the idea of not mass producing because that also has to stay on the shelf. And the longer that product stays on the shelf, it becomes less effective because it's going to start to break down, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But when I make it for each client, it's fresh, it's potent, and it's specifically for that individual. And so, yeah, that takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it because each person is worth that level of attention. And just in the course of my practice, I've seen really positive results. So that means that also when I speak and meet with them, yeah, I'm listening to what their needs are. I'm giving them the space to share with me what their primary concerns. And I'm also listening to, okay, what does this person need in specifics? And so then whatever recommendations I make in terms of plants or lifestyle enhancements or food way shifts, all of that will be in tandem with what showing up for this particular person rather than already having something ready. No, I created really all for them so that it's going to meet them specifically. So that's what Exalted Natural Body. Even when we do events, we'll create and curate a line of things to sell for that event. So, and we like doing it that way. We do. We enjoy just creating like, okay, we're going to do something at this wellness fair. Okay, then we'll craft and create our line that we're going to sell for that day. And it's again, it's fresh. We just made it. It's just we
Beautiful.
just made it. Yeah,
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful.
hmm
So you're deeply committed to preserving the history and knowledge of Black North American herbalism. Can you share what that tradition means to you, why you feel it's important to name and honor it specifically?
Yes. Well, the term Black North American herbalism is not a historical term, but it's a term that I created. And I created this term to specifically identify the groups of people that I'm really wanting to address, and that is African enslaved descendants in North America. Okay. So a lot of times when we talk about African enslaved descendants, that can be from America to Europe to the Caribbean to different parts of Southeast Asia. That can be wherever Africans landed by way of the slave trade.
Hmm.
Okay. And just kind of a caveat, not all of us were impacted by the slave trade. Our people have been circumnavigating the globe for thousands of years before Magellan and Captain Cook and Christopher Columbus. And so, but those of us who were trafficked, okay, I'm speaking of those who were trafficked to America, the United States in specifics. So, Black North American herbalism is really specific to these group of African enslaved descendants in America. So, I created that term to speak to what was our herbal knowledge, tradition, and practice, our prowess. How did we work with the plants on this continent here?
Hmm.
Okay. And so that history is not lost. It's in different places. It's scattered. And so you might hear African American herbalism, or you might hear herbs of the slave or the African slave, or you might hear herbs in the Civil War era. You might hear of those things. And so this is where my search with the Library of Congress came in, just having to cross-reference different things to try to pull from all these resources to say, okay, here's how Africans worked with herbs in the upper regions of the South or the Mid-South, Lowland South, coastal regions of the South. Here are the plants that they interacted with, and here are the common remedies that showed up that African enslaved descendants would treat and would also be documented by white doctors who would come and they would record or they would document their effective remedies. And much of that was very influential in development of Western medicine. Black North American herbalism really just highlights and really reveals our herbal traditions in this country, our herbal practice, the plant usage, plant methods, the ways in which we created medicines, and then how those combinations, I believe, can be used today. How can
Hmm.
we access some of those plants? And then also bioregional herbalism as we continue to migrate through other parts of the United States. How do we adapt? How do we bring some of that knowledge with us? And then some of those plants that are grown in the South, some of those plants can be cultivated here. What's around here that's reminiscent of those things and those combination and combining of herbs and food, and so those are the things that Black North American herbalism reveals. And that's what I wanted to continue to perpetuate because we have a herbal tradition and history in this country.
You have just expressed how that herbal wisdom for Black communities have been carried often without
Mhm.
recognition for
Mhm.
generations.
Long time. Yes, exactly. And for us, when we look at herbalism in the context, it's still very from a white Western European perspective and their lore and tradition. And it's not to say that Europeans don't have a culture and tradition. Of course they do. I'll never advocate that they don't. However,
That's
because of
okay.
colonialism, so much of our higher learning is framed in a colonialist thought and perspective. So Black North American herbalism then is becomes necessary for us to also validate the things that we heard growing up and we remembered. It's not in the distant past, it's very present. So that's what Black North American herbalism does as well. Let's bring that forward and let's review it. Let's analyze it and let's try to recall. And of course, we continue to do more study. And then what are our approaches? And so for us, we love food. We love herbs and medicines in our food. We're not really big on alcohol extractions. Even today among Black herbalists, we're not really big on that. We like it in food. We want it to taste good. We like herbs on our skin and on our body. We love our oils. We love our butters. We love our hair, but those are the ways in which we want to access medicine. We love to fast. We like to do our cleanses, but we also like to bring these herbs that does have this historical framing, but then also the herbs that are outside of that, we have a way of making it unique to us. So this is
Mhm.
what Black North American herbalism also teaches.
Beautiful. It feels like it's a reclamation. It's like really reclaiming that knowledge, that wisdom that's
Hmm.
been here all the time. And
Hmm.
some of it has been passed down, and some of it has just been absorbed into the
Hmm.
consciousness because we've been immersed in it. And there's been so much conditioning and programming that removes it from
Mm.
our awareness.
Yes.
So as ours. So
Yes. Yes.
I like
Absolutely.
that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess for me also is we don't have to look too far. We start with who are we, our family,
Hmm.
who raised you? Who were you around? What did you
Hmm.
eat? What did you see? What did you grow? So I think in my experiences, that's what these conversations have evolved. For Black History Month, I taught an intro to Black North American herbalism for our Black Herbal Knowledge Exchange event. And it was wonderful because it had a lot of elders in the class. And so the class just evoked them telling these amazing stories of what they remember, how they grew up. And one person grew up on a farm and his parents were hog raisers and they never got sick. I mean, it was just great to hear him repeat these things and share these things. And that's the essence of our practice. We love to tell stories, and they're not just false. They're stories based on our experience. That's how we understand things. That's how information is transmitted. And so just wanted to awaken and keep that alive and keep that unique because that's who we are.
The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs. So just a little personal note, I spent a year in my very, very early life, I think between 3.5 and 4.5, with my grandparents down in Mississippi on a
Yes.
farm,
Yeah.
and where there was a chicken coop and
Yeah.
there was the place for smoking animals and that sort of thing and growing plants and what have you. So that was really just a part of the exposure. And then my
Mhm.
mom always had a garden. Collard greens were
Yes.
a definite part of that. I think about the things that when I was young, they would have something like, I can't even remember what it's called now, but every year you'd have to take this, like houndstooth or something like
Hmm.
that to clear your system. There were just, and castor oil and
Yes. Yes. Yes.
these were the kinds of things that were just a part of the natural caring
Hmm.
for self
Mm.
growing up in that household.
Yes, that was my grandmother. And castor oil, it's funny with us, we have our connection to that plant is so different from our white counterparts. They don't have that connection to it in that way. And it's not to say that they should necessarily, but we do. That's those moments of when we would take it internally and that would be what we would look to just to make sure we're well. Or if we were having trouble eliminating, it would be that for us. And so, but castor just has that special, unique thing that we all can remember that someone had castor oil somewhere in their house. And it was
Hmm.
just always
Hmm.
present for us. So, yes.
And putting onions on burns.
Oh, of course. Yes. I mean, now it's going to burn a little bit more, but I think the idea was to prevent bacterial spread because onion has a high sulfuric content. But even for us, my grandmother would make what we call the red onion soup, even though she didn't use red onions, but she made a
Mm-hmm.
tomato base. So that's what made it red to us. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was what we would have when we were sick.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes my grandfather would serve it with cornbread, just
Mm-hmm.
really, really simple. So I've always said, I'm going to try to see if I can recreate that because it was such a nourishing soup and it wasn't a whole lot of other things in it, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just a strong onion base. And it was just red because of the tomato base. And then you would just, to give it some substance, you would eat it with some cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
And that
And
always worked.
and I remember onions with lemon
Hmm.
for colds and things like that.
Yeah.
Like boiling these things and drinking them as
As
teas.
a tea, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
onion tea and lemon, and it's very effective. It does work. It smells like onions, but I tell you what, that cold's not gonna stick around.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. So let's talk about women who are in the middle of a health crisis, cancer treatments, chronic illness, deep fatigue. How do you think about the role of plant medicine and what can herbs offer that other interventions may not?
Wonderful. That's a beautiful question. Herbs are meant to first change our internal terrain. Yeah. And so I found that when I approach or when I'm working with a client who has either survived like a double mastectomy or has survived a round of chemo or radiation, my goal with them is let's first try to change your internal terrain as best we can. Herbs are very nutritive. Yeah. And so it may not be immediately let's herbs that's going to reduce or slow down the rate of cancer cell production or maybe even help break up cysts or tumors that are cancerous. But in order for those things to proliferate and to continue, they create an environment inside the body that allows that to happen. But herbs can help shift that. Herbs can help change that. In addition to what you're eating, in addition to how you're moving. So other things like being around plants outside, well, that's sunlight, that's more oxygen. And so the body is starving of oxygen when cancer cells are present. But when you oxygenate the body, the cancer cells, they kind of suffocates. It's hard for them to continue to reproduce. So getting yourself more oxygen, getting more thermal energy, more sun, it's also going to change your brain waves and brain chemicals, which is also going to help impact the way hormones are related to stress are going to change, or cortisol, adrenaline, those things are going to shift. But then herbs that are nutritive, your herbaceous plants, your nutritive plants like nettle, for example, which is really high in alkaline. So your alkalinity based plants are going to be really necessary. Your green things like that, it's going to be really helpful because it's going to provide the healthy salts. It's going to provide healthy alkalinity. It's going to provide healthy electrolytes. Yeah, it's going to also help to detoxify, meaning to help move out metabolic waste. It's going to also help to provide more blood flow. And again, with blood and oxygen, that's what the body is needing. Let's change the environment. And then if they're on chemo, things that can be hot constitutionally, things that can be dry, things that can be very depleting, then these more herbaceous green herbs are going to help to replete. That's going to help to bring more blood flow. It's going to help to provide more oxygen. That's going to help to also remove some of those harmful chemicals out of the body.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Beautiful, beautiful.
mhm, mhm,
So I'm drinking milk thistle tea.
mhm,
I don't know why I'm drinking it.
mhm.
But do you know what does the milk thistle do? Do you know?
Well, milk thistle, it's the seed.
Mm-hmm.
There's two parts. There's the actual leaf, which is actually very delicious, and I'll talk more about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the seed. The seed is actually, if you grow milk thistle, you got that purple flower, and then you have to wait till that flower dries, break it open with like a millet, and then you have maybe 20, 25 seeds in that little thistly flower cone. But the seeds are very supportive for your liver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the oil content, if you like powder it, it'll oxidize very quickly, and so you have to use it quickly, even in capsule form, because of the volatile oil content in thistle. It's not a saturated fat or anything like that, and so it's more of like a mono or a polyunsaturated fat. Those fats tend to oxidize very fast, so you have to
Mhm.
use it quickly. And so it can be dried, and you probably have it in a tea form. So most likely it's in dried and powdered, and then
Mhm.
you have it in a tea. But yeah, it's going to be really supportive for your liver in specifics. It's going to be hepatoprotective, meaning that it's going to protect and tonify the tissue. It's going to allow for the liver to maintain its natural elimination and detoxifying benefits. It's
Mhm.
going to also help to allow for more blood perfusion. And so that's something that from some traditions, the liver is seen as the place where fear and anxiety shows up the most in that organ,
Anger.
and anger. Yeah. And so when there's anger, then there's also a stress hormone picture there. This is going to help enable the liver to produce vitamin D and
Mhm.
also healthy bile salts that's going to empty to your gallbladder. So yeah, you don't need a lot, but yeah, you want to protect that as well. But burdock does that too.
Okay, and see, what I notice for myself is because I don't have this wealth of knowledge that you have about the benefits of all these things, I end up intuitively just
Hmm.
making a selection.
Oh,
So
that's fine.
it's really great to hear what some of the benefits of this is, and then I can really reflect and become more aware of like what's going on internally that
Hmm.
called me to this particular tea.
Plant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plant.
That's
Yeah.
and that's a very real practice.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the same. It's like, I don't know why I feel like I need this, but I need this. So let me go to that and let me just
Mm-hmm.
kind of be in flow with that. And then later on, I'm like, let's wonder why. Oh, okay. So in the moment, I would say, you're out in the store and you see a tea, it's like, let me try it. And the tea is the best form to try that in. It's the safest, it's the gentlest. And so I would continue that. And then you could always go back and get more research or ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, now that I know you, I will be doing
Okay.
that. Getting some personal formulations done for myself. So,
Yes, absolutely.
so you specialize in these customized herbal formulations. And
Mhm.
when a woman comes to you and says, I don't feel well,
Mhm.
where do you begin? What does the listening process look like?
Well, first, it's just, especially if it's online, of course, or in person, but largely a lot of my clients, they come online. And so, but similarly, let's just first ground and connect to this ground. A lot of times there's anxiety already. And so the goal is let's just shift that so that we can think clearly and that we can also walk through this together with clarity. So I'll have them like bring their sits bones to the edge of their seat, have their feet be planted on the ground, shoulders back, have the hands on their thighs, tuck the chin in, lift up through the crown, and just have soft gaze and just notice. And then I'll have them just do some real gentle breathing. Sometimes, if I have time, I'll bring out my sound bowl and just to notice their state. I'll have them start there. And that generally really just helps us set the tone. And then I'll go in and say, how can I be of service to you today? And then I'll give them the space to share, okay, here's what's going on with me. And so sometimes that first 40 minutes is them just telling me what's on their mind. And then after that, I'll ask more specified questions. I'll go back and echo what they've shared. And then I'll ask them to let's go back and see how we can. What's your primary concern? What's the primary thing you want to address today? And then they'll tell me that. And then I'll do some more follow up questions, some what we call input questions in clinical practice. I'll ask questions around certain body systems that may correlate or that I think may correlate to their primary care to get to the root cause of maybe
Mhm.
why they're there. So, like, for example, one of my clients, they found another cancerous growth near her breast. And
Mhm.
so the goal was to just help shore her body up for the treatment with enough nutrients and also some things that weren't going to be too contraindicative, but also just to help. Let's also look at what are some of the stress patterns that are showing up, or maybe some of the trauma, because sometimes going through things like chemo and going through things like radiation and just even being told that you have cancer, that's a trauma because just like,
Mhm.
what to do with that. And then there's also this fear that I don't have time or I got to act quickly, but no, let's slow down. So just walking them through that process. But yeah, there's the grounding and then there's listening. And then there's now, let's just go back and review more specifics. What's the primary concern that you have? And then I just follow up with a series of other input questions. Sometimes I may ask about what the quality of their elimination is like, or what are they eating? What the quality of are they constipated, or what are their thoughts like? What's their quality of their skin? Those types of things, just to really see how their primary cares or symptoms are showing up in other parts of their body.
I love that. I love
Hmm.
the comprehensive way that you're
Hmm.
going about that. It's true, all of these things have an effect on the overall well-being,
Hmm.
and we don't give enough attention to them. We
Hmm.
move through the world often in survival, just dealing with family issues, dealing with work issues, and not taking enough time to be in relationship with our own bodies. And
Hmm.
so I really love what you're doing and your approach to
Hmm.
helping women to think about that in different sorts of
Hmm.
ways. So,
Yeah. And I know that sometimes when you're just getting the diagnosis from the doctor, just having a space where how do I calm myself down to just think about what I just heard and
mhm,
then how it's
mhm,
landing on me. So that's
mhm.
been really, really nice to be able to help assist in that way too, as well.
Beautiful. So, are there any particular herbs or formulations you find yourself turning to often in support of women dealing with inflammation and immune challenges or the side effects, the depleting side effects of cancer treatments?
Yes. So the herbs that I like to use in support of cancer are herbs that's going to, one, again, let's change the terrain. Herbs that's going to help to shore up the immune because cancer really is an immune picture. So herbs like cleavers, which is a weed, it's very green herbaceous weed. And then herbs like nettle. And then also herbs like dandelion leaf. And then also in cases where there's metastasis, poke root, and then also calendula. Okay. So those lymphatic herbs, in other words, your calendula, your poke root, your cleavers, in particular, your nettles, your dandelion leaf. Those are herbs that's going to move lymph. That's herbs that's going to cool hot and inflame lymph nodes. Herbs that's going to help move out metabolic waste. Herbs that's going to help to also break up any metastasis that's in the body. Yeah, also herbs that are alkaloid rich because the body needs that. So those are herbs that I have used in different formulas for people to just help them be able to stimulate urination, to help them be able to clear as much as they can without being too depleting of the body or without overtaxing the body as well. So those are
Beautiful.
herbs that I found. I also will pull in things like fig leaf as well. Fig leaf is another one, or fig wort, which is another. It looks like a mint type of mint, but it's a kind of ovated type, ovally shaped plant that is kind of serrated, but it's really good. It's really good for hot, inflamed lymph nodes. And so it's
Mhm.
going to really be supportive. I don't use them all at the same time because depending on the the symptoms of the person, like some people just need a good to move things. And so
Mhm.
the Trinity I call, which would, for me would be nettle, dandelion, and cleavers. And cleavers is a seasonal plant that only becomes available right at the start of spring. Hmm.
Okay, great, great.
Hmm.
So your model is healing for life, not just for
Hmm.
the moment. So how do you help women shift from seeing plant medicine as a quick fix to embracing it as a lifelong practice?
Well, again, helping women to understand that your health really is your wealth. And so, how invested do you want to be in your life and in your well being? How high do you want to make that a priority? So, herbs invite us to do that too. Herbs invite us to look at us more introspective and say, okay, what change, even if it's one change, can I make to improve the quality of my life? And so this is not just about this herb does this and this herb does that, like we see in Western medicine, which is very allopathic. Herbs are not allopathic. Herbs by nature are designed to look at the whole person. And so it
Mhm.
also helps us to identify what change or changes one at a time can I make. And so if it's just, how can I enjoy this cup of tea? That means that you have to make space to enjoy that cup of tea. You have to slow down. You have to make space
Mhm.
for that. And so it's just understanding that your health is a journey. What are you willing to do? How much of that journey do you want to be on and go on?
Mhm. Beautiful, beautiful. So much of what you teach, whether it's in your mentorship circle or at events like the Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium, is about building confidence and embodied knowledge. How does that connect to a woman's relationship with her own body?
That's a good question. I think just in helping women to first notice themselves. When I have a client that comes to me, first thing we do is let's just ground. Let's ground. And that for some women that I talk and work with, that's hard for them to do because they've been in the mode of doing, that it's
Mhm.
hard to slow down and notice what's going on with you, meaning what do you notice without judging, without critiquing, just what do you notice? How are you breathing? So just starting there in those places and then cultivating a habit of that, to cultivate over time. Here's how you build a relationship so that you notice and be able to discern where you're at in moment in time. So cultivating that level of noticing and awareness. And then when you're taking in herbs, whether internally or even putting it on, how to care for yourself. And again, small acts,
Mhm.
from a tea to your favorite food, to your favorite oil, and you're not going out having to spend a bunch of money, but what do you have around you to cultivate now a new way of care for you? And
Mhm.
knowing that, of course, you have value. This is important for your overall well being. We need this. I need this all the time. As women, sometimes, especially if we're caregiving, we'll go. Like this morning is a great example. It's like, you know what? I need to slow down. I made my tea. I made linden and cinnamon tea, just those two. And that was just like what I needed to help just bring me down a little bit so I can just be focused and be more at ease. And so just giving ourselves permission to do that and not feel guilt that, oh my God, if I do that, then I'm not being productive. No, that is productive. Taking
Mhm.
care of yourself is productive. Noticing your body so that you can continue to do the things that you love, but also to walk in a way that's going to help you not cross that threshold of harm to yourself and to be able to know when you need to pull back to take care. So this is
Mhm.
how this work, I think, helps to cultivate that for us as women.
Mhm. It reminds me of that advice about putting on your own oxygen mask first,
First.
should there be an issue on this plane.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's absolutely true. So
Yes.
now serve diverse ethnic communities and advocate for natural health care as a form of wellness justice. And
Mm.
what barriers do women of color face in accessing plant medicine, and what would it look like to truly close that gap?
Well, gosh, I think also knowledge, understanding first what's around you first, what's
Mhm.
accessible, what can you get. I think for most people, when we talk about plant medicine, we got to go out and buy it. We got to go pay lots of money. We got to go to like Mountain Rose Herbs or Oshala Farms. And I love those places, beautiful work. But they're expensive, and especially if you have a fixed income or you don't really have much of an income at all. So then also it's like, what can I get at the store? And so one of the things I like to do, lead women, is like, what's at grocery outlet? What's at Lucky? What can you do with that? And it's been great to be able to like, what's in your spice cabinet? So,
Mhm.
but it's also takes a level of like what's around you to be able to act. And having someone who can help facilitate that is also important, but just simple education about what's around you first. And then starting there, and then also what's your community like? Who's around you? And then for some women who may not live in close proximity to like maybe their parents or maybe their grandparent, there's that disconnect. So the further apart we are, then it does get a little difficult to know who you to go to for help. And then there's also the
Mhm.
medical system. And some people you need that because that's all you have. But then the thing that I am now wanting to do more of is what can we do outside of that to still improve our quality of life? Because the doctors, the medical industry, they're going to be limited by their insurance carriers and insurance companies. And so their diagnosis and their treatment would be only in a very limited format. But then empowering women, especially, here's what's around you that you can access for low cost. So
Mhm.
pointing them in that direction. And so again, these are your community grassroots programs. These are your self-learning tools and things that they can get either online or just things that are really easy to be attainable. That's not going to require a whole lot of, I got to go to a 9-month herbal program. I got to know weight to volume ratios. You don't have time for that when you really are in the thick of it. You want to get
Mhm.
access to what you can do, how to make a tea with your seasonings in your cupboard. If
Mhm.
you've got like a bottle of oregano or Italian parsley, you can make you a really nice tea with that, or your fennel or your ginger. What do you have? Some vinegar, even if it's Vaseline. Like one of my clients, her daughter had a really bad case of eczema and she only had $50. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what you can get for $50. She got coconut oil, olive oil. She got a bag of chamomile tea and some Vaseline. So I said, guess what we're going to do? We're going to make a salve with that Vaseline. And sure
Mhm.
enough, it was very effective. So
Beautiful.
teaching women that, you have more than what you think. But when we think about herbs, think about the pretty products, the expensive tools, the beakers, the cylinders, we think of all the things. But then
Mhm.
it's like, if you don't have that available, then you feel like you can't approach it. But like, no, plant medicine, as one of my teachers says, is people's medicine. And it's
Mhm.
around you more than you think, starting
Mhm.
in your kitchen.
Mhm.
Starting with fine, you got Crisco. Let's make that Crisco work. It's not by preference, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. And so, how can we work with what you have to
Mhm.
make that work until you maybe things shift? And maybe you can go to a grocery outlet or go to CVS. That's fine.
Mhm. When I was in Taiwan, I noticed that the people that I came in contact with anyway just had really intricate knowledge of the plants around them, the name of everything,
Mm-hmm.
the trees, the plants growing. I learned, for instance, that people eat baby ferns
Mm-hmm.
as a part of a nutritious diet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That at certain times of the year when the bamboo shoots are coming up and they're
Mm-hmm.
still very tender. And even when I used to live in Maryland and I had
Mm-hmm.
bamboo growing in my yard. And one day a man just knocked on the door and said, "Can I those little baby bamboo shoots
Mm-hmm.
out of your yard
Mm-hmm.
and cook them?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, one condition that you teach me how to do it too.
Right.
You know, you
There you go.
you know.
There you go.
Yeah, so just, this kind of connection
Mm-hmm.
with the natural environment and
Mm-hmm.
what's there. And I remember even where I'm living now here, Marina Bay, there was
Mm-hmm.
an Asian woman out pulling something out of the ground
Mm-hmm.
from the Bay Trail
Mm-hmm.
and putting it in a little bag. I should have
Mm-hmm.
asked her what it was and what it was for because I
Yes.
knew she was harvesting something
Mm-hmm.
that we just look at and think of as a weed or something that belongs to the garden but not to us. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, I mean, and that's just such a really good point in that in those cultures, yeah, growing up. And it's funny, that was us too. I mean, like you
Hmm.
said, our growing up, every Black family I went to, there was some type of garden somewhere, even
Hmm.
if it was little. But in recent more generations, that's become further and further removed, especially as we are living in urbanized areas. And so, like,
Hmm.
if you maybe if were someplace back south, but even in the South, it's changed too. It's not the same. I think for us, it's just going back to that, getting back
Yeah.
to. I'm looking outside. I've got a little bit of sage. I got a little bit of lemon balm. I've got aloe. I've got this tobacco over here. Just a little bit of stuff. Do I
Hmm.
use it? Sure, I do. What can you grow if you can? But if not, what's it? Yeah, what's in your produce section?
Exactly.
What's
Exactly.
around you. Then there are generally a lot of produce stores, they have fresh herbs that you can get for like under $5.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like Berkeley Bowl, for
Broccoli
instance.
bowl. Yeah.
It's like being in an Asian market.
I know. They take EBT, they take
Hmm.
WIC. And so, even farmers markets, some things you can get on EBT. So it's more available, which is good, but it's just also helping people's perspective to shift. And it's been really interesting to see that too, because some was like, I don't want to do that, but I like this. That's okay. When you're ready
Mhm.
for it, it'll be there. It's not going on nowhere. It'll be here.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
This is really fascinating. I'm so enjoying this conversation. I want to shift now to our practice of writing love letters to our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
honoring the body through words and intention. And if you were to write a love letter to your own body today, what would it say?
What comes to the top of my head is that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to not have to do everything. You're not responsible for everything. Take your time, enjoy life. Don't look for a reason to be alarmed. Don't look for a reason to wait for the shoe to drop. It's not an emergency. It's not life or death. Put the traumas behind you and move forward. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That's
Beautiful.
what I would say. It sounds good hearing me say that. So it's like, I want to do just that.
Says, yes, I'm giving myself some advice,
I'm giving
right?
myself some advice and I think I will take it.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm,
So now, what do you want women who are listening, especially those in the middle of a health journey, to know about what plant medicine and their own body wisdom can do for them? You've covered it quite
mhm,
a bit in this
mhm,
conversation, but if you were to
mhm,
just wrap it up a bit, what
mhm.
would you say?
You have more time than you think.
Hmm.
Pay attention to what's inside you and around you, and that you have more available than you realize. It's not over until God says it's over.
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Hmm.
So take a breath, take a deep breath, and assess what your needs are. And if it's one plant that speaks to you, that comes in your mind, then that's the plant you need to go to. Even if it's like a bowl of collard greens, then that means that that's what you need. It's calling you to nourish yourself, to take care of yourself. And don't be afraid to let that plant or those images come forward. That would be one thing. And then know that plants synergistically are designed to work holistically and also time, but not as slow as you may think.
Hmm.
They'll work as soon as you allow the internal terrain in you to shift, even if it's just
Hmm.
a little bit. They'll work with that, and that's good too. So
Hmm.
know that you have more time than you think,
Hmm.
and try to not allow fear to be the boss. Plants are also calling us to slow down. It's okay to, you have your fears, but you don't have to be governed by your fears. And plants help us to do that too. Even with myself, with a cup of linden and cinnamon tea with milk, that
Hmm.
demulcent cinnamon and demulcent plant just hit and soothed what I needed. And that was great. So yes,
Beautiful,
plants do
beautiful.
that. Plants are available in that way.
Shereel Washington, it's been a true, true pleasure to have this conversation with you today. I'm so happy that you graced us with your presence. And I want to remind our listeners that you are a certified clinical herbalist. Your company is Ixalted Natural Body Care and Botanicals. I'll make sure that in the show notes, all of the information about how to be in touch with you is available.
Hmm.
And in fact, I want to look at when you're going to be doing some classes because maybe I can take some. So,
Yes. My public class will be June, I think it's June 6th, and I can send you that information too. That's going to
okay,
be at Berkeley Herbal Center called Cultural Herbalism. And so we'll be looking at what are some of the themes cross-culturally in plant medicine. And then we'll also be exploring therapeutics in that session, like what are the therapeutic remedies that are common from
mhm,
like fomentations, from like different boluses or different teas or soups, foot bath, foot massage, oil. And we're looking at those common therapeutics across the culture. So we'll be exploring that in that class.
beautiful. Thank you so
Mm.
much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad to be here. And I look forward to moving forward and sharing with you and your community. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.